Joining copper pipes is a fundamental skill for any serious do-it-yourselfer. When we talk about joining copper, we're usually talking about two main methods, soldering and brazing. Think of them as using a special kind of metal glue that you melt with a torch. Soldering uses a filler metal with a lower melting point, typically below 840 degrees Fahrenheit. Brazing, on the other hand, is a much hotter process. It uses a filler material that melts at a higher temperature, creating a bond that is incredibly strong. Both methods will give you a watertight seal, but you choose one over the other depending on the job at hand. So why would you need to join copper pipes in the first place? Well, plumbing systems are rarely a single straight line of pipe. You'll need to connect pieces to go around corners, split a line into two, or add a new fixture like a sink or a shower. You might be running a new hot water line for a dishwasher, or maybe you're replacing an old leaky section of pipe that has finally given up after many years of service. It could also be that you're installing a brand new system in an addition to your home. In all these cases, you need a reliable way to make strong leak-proof connections. The tools you'll need are pretty similar for both jobs, but with a few key differences. For either soldering or brazing, you'll need a good torch. For soldering, a simple propane torch is usually enough. For the higher heat of brazing, you'll need something more powerful, like a MAP gas torch or even an oxyacetylene rig. You will also need the right filler metal lead-free solder for plumbing or a brazing rod, which is often a silver alloy. Don't forget your flux, which is a paste that cleans the metal and helps the filler flow. You'll also need a pipe cutter, a deburring tool, and some emery cloth or a wire brush for cleaning. Let's talk a little more about those filler metals because they're at the heart of the process. For any plumbing that carries drinking water, you must use lead-free solder. It's the law, and it's for your safety. This solder melts at a relatively low temperature, making it easy to work with for most home applications. Brazing rods are different. They are alloys, often containing silver, that melt at much higher temperatures. This creates a joint that is much stronger than a soldered one, which is why brazing is often required for high-pressure lines, like in refrigeration or some commercial plumbing systems. The strength of the final joint really comes down to which filler material you use. Before you even think about lighting that torch, you have to get your pipe and fitting ready. A good joint is all about good preparation. The first step is to get a clean square cut on your copper pipe. A tubing cutter is the best tool for this job. It's a simple C-shaped tool with a cutting wheel. You just clamp it onto the pipe, tighten it, and rotate it around the pipe a few times. Keep tightening the knob a little with each turn. Soon, you'll get a nice clean snap. This clean cut ensures the pipe will sit perfectly inside the fitting, which is critical for a strong connection. Once you've cut your pipe, you'll notice a small burr or a raised edge on the inside. You have to remove this. If you don't, it can create turbulence in the water flow and cause noise or even erosion inside your pipes over time. Most tubing cutters have a small triangular deburring tool attached to them. You can also use a dedicated deburring tool. Just insert it into the end of the pipe and give it a few twists. You want the inside of that pipe to be smooth, just like the outside. It's a small step, but it's what separates a professional job from an amateur one. Now for the most important part of preparation cleaning, the copper has to be shiny bright. Both the outside of the pipe and the inside of the fitting must be cleaned thoroughly. You can use a special wire brush made just for this purpose, or a piece of emery cloth or sandpaper. You want to sand it until there's no more tarnish or oxidation. The metal should look like a brand new penny. If the copper isn't perfectly clean, the solder or brazing material won't stick properly, and you'll end up with a leak. This is the step where you can't cut any corners. The final step before you bring in the heat is to apply flux. Flux is a chemical cleaning agent that comes in a paste. You use a small brush to apply a thin, even layer to the outside of the pipe and the inside of the fitting, the two surfaces you just cleaned. The flux does two things. It prevents the copper from oxidizing again when you heat it, and it helps the molten filler metal flow smoothly into the joint through a process called capillary action. Don't use too much, as excess flux can get inside the pipes and cause corrosion. A light coating is all you need for a perfect joint. With your pipe and fitting cleaned, fluxed, and assembled, you're ready for the heat. Let's start with soldering. Fire up your propane torch to get a steady blue flame. The trick is to heat the fitting, not the pipe or the solder directly. The heat from the fitting will transfer to the pipe inside it. Keep the flame moving around the entire joint to heat it evenly. You'll know it's hot enough when the flux starts to bubble and smoke a little. A good way to test the temperature is to touch the solder to the joint on the side opposite the flame. If it's hot enough, the solder will melt instantly and get sucked right into the joint. Once the joint is at the right temperature, just touch the tip of your lead-free solder to the edge of the fitting. Capillary action will do the work for you, pulling the molten solder into the tiny gap between the pipe and the fitting. You'll see a silver ring appear as the solder fills the joint completely. You only need a little bit, usually about a ½ inch of solder for a ½ inch pipe. Once you see that silver line all the way around, remove the solder and the torch. Let the joint cool down on its own without moving it. After a minute or so, you can wipe the outside with a damp rag to remove any excess flux, which can cause corrosion. Brazing follows the same basic principles, but everything is ramped up. You'll need a hotter torch, like MAP gas. Just like with soldering, you heat the fitting evenly. Because you're working with much higher temperatures, the copper will start to glow a dull cherry red. This is your signal that it's time to apply the brazing rod. Don't heat the rod directly with the torch. Instead, touch the rod to the hot joint. It will melt and flow into the space, creating a strong, continuous seam. The process feels very similar to soldering, but the intense heat requires more care and attention. The key difference in the brazing process is managing that intense heat. You have to work quickly and confidently once the metal reaches that cherry red temperature. Keep the torch moving to avoid overheating one spot, which could damage the pipe or fitting. Just like with soldering, let the joint cool naturally without any disturbance. A brazed joint is significantly stronger than a soldered one, which is why it's used for things like refrigeration lines that operate under very high pressure. It can also be a better choice for joints that will be subject to a lot of vibration. The final result is a connection you can depend on for the toughest jobs. Working with an open flame and hot metal requires your full attention and respect for safety. First and foremost, always have a fire extinguisher nearby and know how to use it. You should also wear the proper personal protective equipment, or PPE. This means safety glasses are a must to protect your eyes from stray bits of hot solder or flux. I also recommend wearing leather gloves to protect your hands from the heat and a long-sleeve shirt made from a natural fiber like cotton. Synthetic fabrics can melt if they come into contact with a flame or hot pipe, causing a nasty burn. It's also crucial to be aware of your surroundings. Make sure your work area is clear of any flammable materials, things like sawdust, paper, paint cans, or rags. If you're working near wooden studs, joists, or insulation, use a heat shield. This is a special fire-resistant cloth or a piece of sheet metal that you place behind the joint you're working on. It acts as a barrier to protect the surrounding structure from the torch's flame. After you finish, always stay in the area for a while to make sure no hidden embers are smoldering inside the wall. The main difference to remember between soldering and brazing is the temperature and the resulting strength of the joint. Soldering is perfect for standard residential water supply lines. It's easier for a beginner to master because the lower temperature is more forgiving. Brazing is a heavy-duty process. The higher temperature creates a much stronger bond, but it also requires a more powerful torch and a higher level of skill to control the heat. For most homeowners doing basic plumbing repairs, soldering is going to be the method you use 99% of the time. It's effective, reliable, and accessible. Don't be intimidated by this process. Like any skill, it just takes a bit of practice. I recommend getting a few scrap pieces of pipe and some fittings to practice on before you work on your home's actual plumbing. Make a few joints, then cut them in half to see if the solder flowed all the way in. This will help you build confidence and get a feel for how much heat to apply and for how long. With a little bit of practice and a focus on safety and preparation, you'll be making perfect, leak-free joints in no time. It's a very satisfying skill to have.